Welcome, everyone, to the Songwriters on Process podcast. My name is Benno Papari, and on this podcast, I take a deep dive into the writing process behind some of the world's best songwriters. By way of background, I am a former English professor. I have a PhD in English language and literature, and I'm a writer myself. So this is a conversation about writing between two writers. My goal has always been to treat songwriters the same way that we treat prose writers, just as writers, plain and simple. So that's all we focus on. I don't care about tour stories, favorite bands, how bands get their name, favorite foods, anything like that. This is, again, a deep dive into the songwriting process with some of the world's best songwriters. And with that, let's get into today's episode. And today on the pod, it is Tyler Ballgame. Ballgame's debut album, For the First Time Again, is out now on Rough Trade Records. And I'm glad that we finally have someone who believes in procrastination. We talked about this at some point in the podcast, but thousands of pages, so much ink has been spilled about the dangers of procrastination. Now, of course, the procrastination means that you aren't getting things done when they should be. That's different. But I've always said that we procrastinate because sometimes we work better under pressure. Some people work better under deadlines. And yet we've always thought procrastination is a bad thing. But when I was a professor, I always told my students, listen, if they procrastinate, it means they don't get their papers done again. That's bad. But sometimes people work better under pressure. And who am I to say that that's not the best way to do things? And so we settled that at some point today, procrastination for some people, that works really well. It certainly does for him, as you'll hear him talk about. I also think he's the first person to use the phrase iambic pentameter in a podcast with me. And I love that. So we got to talk about poetry. A lot of his best songs started as dreams. Certainly, that's a common theme I hear a lot from songwriters. And a couple of the songs in the new album, he doesn't even remember writing and has no recollection of how he wrote them, where he was, how they got started. And when we talked about the ideal emotional state for a lot of his songs, he talks about a mindlessness, a stillness, that there's no really ideal emotion when he gets his best writing done. He just needs that stillness of the mind to get into that flow state. So great conversation. His new album is fantastic. It is called For the First Time Again on Rough Trade Records. Here is my interview with Tyler Ballgame. Is it important to create or write in some fashion every day, or are you more of a when the mood strikes type of person?
I think I'm more of a when the mood strikes. I'll go stretches without creating and writing, though I'm always open to things popping in my head and trying to capture, whether that's just like reinforcing by like singing something or getting a little voice memo. I'm big with voice memos, just like always being open, but I'm not like disciplined in terms of a regimen, though a big step in my writing was kind of scheduling out sessions here in LA with other writers almost every day. And I did that for about a year. So that I did feel the benefit of doing it every day, but me personally, I don't regimen myself.
All right, so a couple of follow-ups. After you've found some success in that scheduling, do you feel like maybe that's something I should try, or is it not enough to feel like I need to change my routine to do that?
Um, I was uh, I was more just noticing the differences. That when you do it every day, it becomes like a thing you can turn on. Like um, but also you need that kind of. I felt it like I was riding like the wave of the excitement of meeting someone for the first time, another writer or a producer, and having like I'm a very like open personality, so I'm very like it's like you have a little therapy session right away with this new person, and then you're bound to find some type of through line between you two to then write something that really means a lot to you, to both of you. That's going to have that kind of spark of excitement. But in terms of myself, yeah, without that kind of other person in the room, I find it a little harder.
So when you say when the mood strikes, what mood is that? Um, yeah, is it, do you write? Yeah, just go ahead and explain because I think there's various moods that people find to be more effective when that, what kind of mood is the one that gets you to start to write?
I think it's when I find a little string of something. I think it's when it's usually like melodic um, or just like an excitement around playing the guitar and finding a little chord change that I like. Or some of the best songs I've written, I've dreamed, um, where it's I kind of train myself in a dream. If I hear a song in a dream or something, kind of my active mind, my waking mind goes like, "Oh, you should wake up and record that." And so I've done that a good amount, and even on the album. Um, but yeah, I think it's the mood to write. I think it's always like a kind of mindlessness. It's almost like a um, how well am I able to turn off my mind and just kind of get into a flow state, kind of where I'm just strumming and singing and things are coming out and it's feels exciting to me.
Do you think it's important to be aware of when you're in those states? I mean, I've never written a song in my life, but I'm a prose writer, and so I'm always searching for that awareness of, is that because I want to take advantage of that, right? Like, what is that state? Is it a place or emotional state where I tend to be the most productive? Do you think it's important to try to know when that is?
Yeah, I think it's a stillness. I think it's kind of like the similar thing to like meditation or something where when you're able to quiet your active mind, the mind that's thinking like, "Oh, I've never met this person before. I wonder if who they've worked with. I wonder if they would get talk to their A&R about me. I wonder if like all those like ego thoughts that are involved with like playing the game of like these human games that we build that aren't creation, and I think creation comes from the wellspring of imagination, which is what dreaming is and what that kind of like pure nothingness state where it's just at the very bottom of the essence of our consciousness is some tie to that eternal wellspring of imagination. So I think it's kind of like a clearing state where you're able to actually hear some things bubbling up.
Do you meditate at all?
Not really. I honestly think kind of playing music is kind of my meditation.
So does music help you get into that state? I guess what I'm trying to get at is how are you able it's hard to get into that space of stillness.
Yeah.
Um are, are there
Yeah.
things, yeah, do you do things to put yourself in that state?
Yeah. I think it's just strumming a guitar. I think it's just like, um, usually a session or like a really good songwriting thing, you're feeling something and you're thinking about something, or you just had a conversation with someone where you kind of had a breakthrough with someone and feel like you're getting to know something new about someone else or yourself. And then you just sit down and strum the guitar and are freed by that vibration, and just how fun it is to sing, like singing is so fun. It's like it vibrates your whole body, and it's right at the core of your person, and um, there's no rules, and it just comes, but it also echoes of everything you've ever heard, like every song you've ever loved is inside you. So it's like kind of it's this dance between what's existed and what's hasn't existed yet, and it's I don't know, it's a mystery.
Do you get ideas? Because it sounds like a lot of these ideas are happening when you're strumming your guitar, you might be by yourself. Do you notice how often you get inspired and how often does the mood strike when you're out, whether you're with people, you know, socially or walking around? How often do you get inspired in those situations?
Well, I think walking, I definitely do get inspiration walking or driving. Anything where I feel like my body and active mind are have to do something else, whether it's like navigating the sidewalk or driving a car. Sometimes I'll even write. I'll put something a TV show on that I've seen a million times, like Friends or something, and just have a guitar and have it really loud and just like kind of uh, it like occupies enough of my brain waves where then I can kind of just let go underneath and access something else. Um, Not too much when I'm talking to people or when I'm around in a social setting. I can't remember the last time I've had like a song pop in my head or something. On an airplane, I could do a lot of writing on airplanes. I think there's something about that like liminal space where it's like between worlds, like being in the air in the fuselage and everyone's kind of a little sedated and you're the air you're breathing is different and you experience time differently. I've had a lot of melodies come to me, full songs come to me in the air recently. And um I also like there's also an emotional thing about being in the air, like, when you like you cry watching movies that you otherwise wouldn't, on the seat back TV because you're just like the air is so thin or something. I don't know. So I think is you can access this emotional part of you a little easier at 30,000 feet too.
So since you brought that up, I'm going to get this to you somehow. There was an article in the Atlantic magazine within the past 5 or 10 years about exactly why we cry on airplanes.
Yeah.
And they explore that idea. And I've had this conversation about a movie that you're going to watch at home may not make you cry, but
Mm,
we've all been in situations, embarrassing situations on an airplane where it's like, you tears stream and it's some movie about that wouldn't normally make you cry. So and I think that's interesting because, like, what is it about? Here's my theory on this.
yeah.
I think when you fly, there's much more an awareness of mortality, of how insignificant we are. It's much more existential than driving on the 101 in LA. Although you may be aware of mortality driving there
Right.
too. But I think being in an airplane when you can see the world, I think there's a lot more deep thinking going on, isn't there, than just being in a car. So that's my theory as to why, because I'm the same way, right?
Mm.
Seems like I can write pretty easily. I can have some deep thoughts on an airplane, but not in the back of an Uber.
Yeah, it is an existential place. It's we're not supposed to be up there, like it's our uh our human animal body. It's unnatural, so there's some parts of us must be bucking.
Yeah, and I think maybe there's that unconscious thought that again, it's oh my gosh, like I'm 35,000 feet up. Uh, you know, I could die within a second up here. And you don't feel that way. Like I ride trains, I don't feel that way I don't get that existential angst on a train.
I I don't get an angst on the train, and I don't necessarily get an angst flying. I feel like I'm pretty good with flying. I feel like I feel more in danger driving a car on the highway in LA, but I do get existential on trains,
Hmm.
especially. I'm remembering this one time I was um, on the Acela from Boston to New York City at like sunrise and going through like Mystic, Connecticut against the water. And I think it's like being up against the water. It's like something that's a mystery, kind of like the sky, like seeing all those clouds, like it's something greater than you and you're looking at well, for lack of a better word, like God, like
Yeah.
it's humbling you right to your face, or big sky country out driving across the United States, where if you're in the city or in a suburb or something, that can feel almost a little bit like, oh, that's somewhere else. I think there's something that has to do with being close to a force like that that's also inspiring and inspires writing.
So let's talk further about the movement because I find walking, for me, nothing gets me out of a rut. It's amazing if I sit here for 50, like 50 minutes, and if I feel like I'm in a rut, if I go walk around for 5 or 10, I come back with renewed purpose. And walking and movement in general, I think we can all agree is, for whatever reason, is a place for, I think, a pretty fruitful place. So is walking something that you do to get ideas, or is it when you're stuck? Do you make that an active part of your process?
No, not really. I think when I lived in the woods in Rhode Island, I think it was a bit more part of my process, just like being out in nature. Walking around in LA, I think is a different vibe. But Yeah, I think I always think of Beethoven when thinking about writing and walking, and you can hear it in Beethoven's work, the pounding of his footsteps through the forest, and he would walk every day and write, and then come back to the piano with, part of a symphony in his head. Um, but yeah, that's where my mind goes.
There's a great book I read called The Friendship by a guy named Adam Sisman. It's about the friendship between Wordsworth and Coleridge, the Romantic poets, and
Mm,
how they composed almost all of their poems on walks
mm,
because they found them to be to be a good time. And your mind is, we're not built to sit for hours. I mean,
yeah.
and uh, so I don't know how anyone can be productive for an extended period of time. Um, but movement seems to cure almost everything when it comes to just if I feel like I'm stuck. Um, but I always quote, this is the one quote I always use with songwriters, and that is Agatha Christie said, the best time to write a book is when you're doing the dishes. So
Mm,
what she's saying is that when your brains are engaged, I think you've actually referenced this, when your brains are engaged in unconscious activities, that's when the conscious bubbles up. So, songwriters who tell me they get ideas while they are gardening, vacuuming, folding laundry, doing the dishes, cleaning, when your brains are engaged in those, or taking a shower,
mm.
that's when the eureka moments happen. So, if I hear you correctly, you get a lot of ideas in those situations too.
Yes, yeah, the shower's a big one too. Just yeah, something that feels routine, something that where I just go into autopilot, like driving too. You ever have those drives where you're like totally space out and you're like, wait, I just drove that. I don't remember doing that at all. There's power and access to another part of our brains in those processes. I know Paul McCartney wrote a lot while driving in cars, and there's something to be said too about maybe not recording on voice memos and like make if you remember it, then it's actually worthy of recording and writing down, like about not preserving every little thing unless it's strong enough to be remembered at the other end of that drive.
You mentioned voice memos. So, do you just have thousands of voice memos on your phone?
I do, yes.
And is there any organization to them whatsoever?
Nope.
You said that so confidently. Is there any attempt? Do you wish they were organized or do you just like them scattered?
Yeah, I like it scattered. I don't know. I feel like organization almost like stifles something in me. It's where it's like I create from a different place. Um, even like I like papers around my table, like not like everything in a little pile and everything. And like if I've had roommates in the past of like organized things, I'm like, oh, I feel like, ooh, like it's not my space, like it's something else. I don't know. It's interesting.
Okay. So much to unpack here. Um, but first, let me ask you one more thing about the voice memos, and that is, how often do you go back to those? Do you go back to them often, like like some of the really old voice memos for ideas? Do you use them to mix and match? How do you use now? How often do you use those voice memos?
I think in like preparing for an album, like this most recent album, my second album that we're working on right now, um, I I kind of use the voice memos as like I would play the songs that I wanted to record, and record them and then listen back to them and see if there was music there, to see if it was musical and made me feel anything. And also, I love just like having mumble lyrics, there, and trying to listen back and hear what words I was trying to say in that flow state. Like if, and it's usually like because I guess I'm composing phonetically with what fits to the melody and the rhythm there. So I don't want to deviate too far from that first impulse of phonetic placement. So, and then I just want to find something that makes me feel something, something that feels true, something that feels interesting or exciting or original, that kind of honors that initial phonetic spark.
Those sounds phonetically that you make first, then you go back and try to find actual words
Mm.
that fit that. That's interesting. So the words don't come first. It's more the phonetics, the sounds, and then you think what what word would go well with that melody.
Yeah, and I the only artist I've heard that also works like that was ABBA. Where they would like, I guess a lot of Swedish writers would write phonetically in English, because like, the meaning of the English words almost was secondary, and it was, they're thinking of it as, like, another instrument or something.
One of my first interviews I did was with Jack Tempchin, who was a songwriter. He wrote some songs for the Eagles,
Mm.
and he wrote "Peaceful Easy Feeling," and he told me that he and Glenn Frey would get together, and they named the voice El Blurto. El Blurto was the name of the voice of the nonsense sounds that would come out. They wrote that exact same way, but they joked that it made them more productive because giving that thing a name
Mm.
acknowledged like how important it was in the process.
Yeah, totally. I think the active mind can kind of get in and try to make a puzzle out of it, and it almost kind of steps on the natural feeling of a song sometimes. Like in order to try to make it make sense to this new puzzle that you're building, you kind of lose that initial mystery puzzle that was bubbling up inside you. That is maybe more interesting and more powerful and more tied to that wellspring.
So if you're looking for something that fits the melody with those sounds, are you willing then to kind of sacrifice some of the meaning
Yeah.
if that sound works better than that phonetic sound works better than the word, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I think it's a balancing act, I think it's and it sometimes can push you to take your time on a song, um, in terms of, like, when that phrase is gonna pop into your head and make you feel something, but I've also, like, on the first album, there are songs that I don't even really remember writing and phrases that I didn't know what it meant, and then, like, a year into it of touring the song and singing it, then it meant more to me because I was like, "Oh, that's what I was singing about," rather than, I made it make sense in that first few hours.
So you mentioned papers a few minutes ago, and if I hear you correctly, you like a messy space?
Yeah, I think it's just more, um, I don't know, there's something about the chaos, not too messy, but like, something about like making everything in order that just feels like a little, it takes a little bit of my brain space away, or I don't know.
I think that's you're the first songwriter that's ever said that because the number of songwriters who tell me that they have to clean their space before they write. Now I see that almost, and I'm the same way, but
Mm,
I call it for what it is. It's procrastination. I
yeah.
don't need the clean space. It's like I just okay, let me do this thing and then I'll start to write. But I love that you're okay with that, the chaos that you find. But I think that's again, that's what I was saying earlier was I think it's important to know in some degree, like what's going to set you up for success a little bit. Like I think, I don't know, at least for me, you can't think of this process as complete mystery. You have to know a little bit of what makes you tick. When you have the guitar, it's going to be very. I got a couple
Yeah.
very specific questions for you. So when you've got your guitar, are
Hmm.
you sitting, standing, or walking around?
Sitting.
Really? Not
Yeah.
even a question.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, yeah, I'm usually sitting. Um, and sometimes I'll like bring a chair in from the living room or the kitchen table into my bedroom, to almost make it feel like it's like a special occasion or something, like this old wooden chair that's like super solid, and it's like not just like my normal living space or how I'm normally set up. It's like I'm writing, so I'm taking this chair and I'm going in my room.
Now we're getting somewhere. I love it. But that to me is, I've got that chair behind me is where I do my writing. Now, when you're writing lyrics, are you a pen and paper person or a computer slash phone person?
um, I've done both. I mean, I think a lot with a lot of co-writes and with a lot of, just modernity and like ease of like the workflow. I think the phone has worked for me. Also, like if I ever think of phrases or something, I have just a master document where I just put things. Or if I ever read like a piece of literature that I really love, I'll just lift lines out of the book and stow them away for later. Which is always great to just like spark that like web and that economy of words that I'm trying to build in a song, and to have outside things, even if they don't make the song, just inform something or inform some new vector of association that I'm building, or some new unseen influence, which I think is interesting. But there is something to be said about paper, or even like I've in college I wrote a lot. We had a dry erase board, which was I think was really good, especially I was in a few like advanced poetry classes, and we would do a lot of like um, substitutions and looking at iambic pentameter and things, and so I was kind of in that world, and then would write songs that way on the whiteboard, and that was really interesting as well, and kind of had its own flavor in terms of capture.
So does it, but then we've got that dry erase board then. See, my fear with that is that when I erase something, it's gone forever and I can no longer even, it's no longer in my mind. So when I like, when I, when I have pen and paper and I have an idea that I'm not going to use, I just like to cross it out so that it
Mm,
is always there if I have to go back to it. Um,
yeah.
but you're telling me that you want that thing gone forever.
I don't know. I think I remember taking photos of it, but I don't know if I were gonna do like a variant or something. But I think yeah, I mean there is brain science backing up that pen and paper sticks more in our brains, and um, I grew up still working on pen and paper, so I've definitely had a notepad, and in getting ready for albums, I usually have a, a pen and paper in the studio as we finalize lyrics.
I've read research. They've done research with college students and find that college students retain
Mm.
information better taking notes, pen and paper versus computer. So you're absolutely right. Again, very specific question. Does color of ink or type of pen matter?
Um, I I don't think so. I think I've written in all different colors. I've definitely seen like even red or purple or blue, or black. I think some pens are more fun to write with, like, and then some can be like more blotchy, where it's almost like feels a little dangerous or something. Like, or like, am I even going to be able to read this? Or if it like gets closed and it messes up the lyrics or something. I don't know. I think finding a good pen is probably a good place to start.
What about time of day? Does that matter to you?
I don't think so. Um, I think there is some energy about late at night and early in the morning. I think that first 5 minutes after you wake up there's real power there because I think you're still connected to the dream space. Um, and then I think late at night, I think there's some type of energy shift in the world. I mean, obviously, with like the plants and animals around us are shifted, and um, I used to write a lot really late at night when I couldn't sleep. But I don't know, my sleep's been pretty regular, so I guess and now I don't have a day job, so I feel like I've been picking up the guitar whenever. I guess just more being not precious about it. It's whenever it comes.
Can you sit for extended periods or do you need frequent breaks? Like I said, I'm good for about 50 minutes and then I just have to walk around for 5. So can you sit for extended periods?
Yeah, I have pretty crazy focus in terms of like doing like 12-hour recording sessions or like and like people around me kind of being like, hey, well, we should like go outside or like we should kind of like maybe call it or songwriters. I mean, but usually those sessions I'm probably writing in one room for 6, 7 hours. Um, but I think that's kind of just the nature of my brain of just getting locked onto something and then like forgetting that I have to like feed myself or forgetting that I have to drink water or something. So I should probably be better at that.
I've been quoting Lucinda Williams a lot since our interview a couple of months ago, and she said one thing that stuck with me that that I found so powerful, and she said that to be able to write about difficult things, she has to be content. In other words, in a she can't be in that state of mind. She can write about troubling things, difficult things, dark things, but to write about a dark space, she has to be content. Uh, so that's more the idea of distance, I guess. But how important is that to you? Do you need distance to be able to write about that things, or are you better in the immediacy of the moment?
Well, I think part of my like I guess spiritual journey or my a journey with I guess identity in the self is kind of carrying that distance with me regardless, that like just inherently understanding that like the pitfalls and successes of personality are illusory, and that you should always walk with a bit of a distance from that mask of identity. And I think ball game is kind of a meditation on the mask of identity and kind of wearing this new mask and with this new character who could sing whatever, So I that's really interesting to hear about Lucinda. That because I really agree. I think the song "Got a New Car" that I wrote for the album, that kind of is me kind of cataloging my failures and my kind of, I was in the midst of it too, but it wasn't, I wasn't able to write about it until I kind of had that break from my reality where I was then all of a sudden seeing the mask of my personality almost for the first time, where I could laugh at it, and just be like, oh my gosh, I'm taking myself so seriously. I'm just torturing myself. um, but uh, it's yeah, I think that that distance is important in life in general, just not to get too tied up in your successes or your failures, and that gives you the perspective to truly see, which I think is a songwriter's probably number one job is to be a seer.
Let's talk about the latest album. What is there one song in the album that stands out as being the easiest to write? Did you have the lightning in the bottle moment that took, you know, the one that took 15 minutes or something like that? What was the easiest song on the album?
The easiest song. Well, I don't remember writing "Goodbye, My Love." Um, like, could not tell you where I was or how long it took. I have a voice memo that proves I it was in a different form, and then I the next one it's in the real form of what it was, but I have no idea where I am or what's going on. Um, and yeah, I think that one probably is the one that like it just came out.
So you mean you have no recollection of where you were?
No.
Wow, that's so interesting.
Yeah, there's
Um,
a couple songs, I don't remember. But, yeah, I think it's interesting too.
I don't know what to say to that. I just, I mean, so it's just when you go back, when you read that and you look at those lyrics or the voice memos, you just cannot, nothing about that puts yourself in that space.
Nope, I have no idea. Whereas, like, other ones I know that I wrote "I Believe in Love" at my sublet in Highland Park at the kitchen table for over 2 days, sitting there, and I remember the moves I made. Like, I remember first the bridge was after the verse, and then once I moved that to the bridge, and then I tried it again, the chorus came, and it was literally the chorus came fully formed, or I'm writing Matter of Taste in my bedroom on the chair, and my roommates outside, singing along and like pounding on the walls because they wanted to hear it again, and I was like, oh, this one must be cool then. Um, I kind of have the story like that for kind of each song, but I don't remember "Goodbye My Love" and I don't remember "Sing How I Feel."
And from a personal perspective, do you think those are your best songs, the ones that you just had no memory of?
Um, I don't know. I don't know what best songs means. I think so. There's just like different slices of the experience and of I guess my like feelings, uh, or my being as a feeler. But I think "Goodbye My Love" makes me feel something every time I sing it. And I've sung it to close every show now for the last 2 years.
All right. So the flip side to that, was there a song in the latest album that was so hard to write you almost gave up on,
Um,
or so hard to finish, maybe?
no, I think it was the nature of the process where I met Jonathan Rado and he said, "Let's make an album," and I basically had a month to write all new material because I had just used 3 years of writing on an EP. So it was like the ultimate because I'm a big procrastinator too. So it's a great thing. It was like, all right, you got to write all these songs, and like I took time off work and stuff to like make sure I had the songs done, and went in and I think I kind of have that like red light thing where when the red light's on, I do my best. Like when it's like when the pressure's high, I perform my best. So that I felt like the whole album was kind of like that. It was like, hey, you're gonna have the biggest opportunity you've ever had, you might ever get, and you need to perform. And I think the songs just kind of spilled out.
I sense that you own your procrastination. You said I'm a big procrastinator with a sense of pride. And I love that because I, I mean, thousands upon thousands of words have been written about the evils of procrastination, but I never see it that way. I see it as we are that. Now, if procrastination means that you you're not hitting deadlines, that's one thing. But I see it as I'm just not ready to write, and I'm the exact same way you are. But I love the fact that when you said that, it wasn't with a sense of regret. It was, hey, that's who I am, and that makes me a better writer. So do you find that it sounds like being a procrastinator makes you a better writer?
I think so. I think there is like kind of that red light thing that I mentioned, and I think kind of acting in a place of with your back against the wall. There's just something interesting there. It's more interesting than just like being at leisure with no structure. Which is, uh, yeah, I don't know. I think there's eh, maybe it's a sense of pride or something in like being able to just like flip it on and get the magic. But I yeah, there's something that makes me perform at my best, and I don't know if I have that discipline to just do that. on like a Tuesday afternoon or something.
I'm the same way, and so we live in the DC. We live in Washington DC, and I you mentioned the Acela because I take the Acela all the
Yeah,
time. I go to New York for work, and I'll get more done in that 2 hour, 45-minute train ride than if I sat here for 2 hours and 45 minutes because I know when that train pulls into Penn Station, I have to stop.
yeah.
And so I use those, I call them false deadlines, as a source of comfort almost because it's like, okay, it's going to get done. It has to. And it has because I have to stop when we get to New York. I'm the exact same way. Um,
Mm.
that if I sat here for that time, I wouldn't get anything done. But if you tell me, you were the, the electricity's shutting off in 3 hours, I'll get a hell lot more done that way.
Yeah, you don't have time to second guess yourself and your choices. It's like art
Yeah.
making and writing is just decision making. It's hundreds of minute decisions, one after the other on top of each other. And I think the enemy of decision making is maybe that time and that idle space of mind where it's like, is that good? Is that could I beat that? And there's a time for that, I suppose. But also, if you're desperate and you had one thing to say to this person, one thing to address this, and you're about to, your ship's about to go down. You're gonna say something. You're gonna say what's true. It's like Hemingway or something. It's like it's gonna be a declarative sentence. It's gonna be 6 words long, and it's gonna be your whole essence encapsulated into that one sentence.
It's a great segue into my last question. And you could be, I think, the first songwriter to reference iambic pentameter in an interview. So I love that. And unfortunately, I can count on probably one hand, maybe two, the number of songwriters who tell me they read poetry. So I'd love to get to talk about reading, who you like to read. Are you an author person? Are you a genre person? What role does that play in your life?
Yeah, I think I really like I find that I find authors and kind of fall in love with their work and their style. Like same with movies, like auteurs, like people who build their worlds in a unique way, and it feels of the world and apart from the world. Right now, I love Steinbeck. Right now, I read East of Eden, and it rocked my world. And I'm reading all the short stories, and it's just really inspiring to see how someone processes their world and imbues it with such realness and humanity, but also like otherworldly wisdom. Um, yeah, and I wouldn't say I read poetry, but I really enjoyed studying poetry and kind of learning about prosody. Learning about the form matching the meaning of the text. And I that really lit my brain up, and inspired me to, you know. You're not just communicating on the one conscious level to your audience. You should be communicating on 4 or 5 levels underneath, and writing at its best does that, just like movies do. Um, yeah.
So when you find an author that you like, it sounds like you just go, "I gotta read everything by that person."
Yeah, and I find my favorites, and, yeah, I kind of find something and obsess over it.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm the exact opposite. My first thought when I finish something is, "I want another voice in my head." That's just the way I am. But I talk to a lot of people like you, and that is, okay, I need to devour everything by that author. Um, but that's why I like reading short story anthologies and things like that, because I like having those different voices. But Steinbeck gets cited a lot by songwriters as an
Mm,
influence. It probably makes sense. The songwriters or the authors who I hear the most, I hear Steinbeck, Raymond Carver, Kurt Vonnegut, Hemingway, Bukowski. Not as much anymore, but it's all the writers who favor economy of language.
mm. Yeah, and that's what a song is. That's I think another one, Nabokov, I
Yeah.
think is incredible wields the English language in a way that nobody. It's so flowery and so like just everything that a folk songwriter would ever want. Um, it's also cool to see. I hear what you're saying though about the different voices that there are in the pantheon of great writers. And like yeah, but it's all the same language. It's just fascinating.
And that's it for the latest episode of Songwriters on Process. You can find all of the old episodes on all major streaming platforms and probably some minor ones as well. You can also find them on the Songwriters on Process website. I started the site back in 2011, so that means there are hundreds upon hundreds of interviews with some of the world's best songwriters. So take a deep dive into some of those episodes. They are all great. Of course, I'm biased. Also, shameless plug. My book, Desolation, a Heavy Metal Memoir by Mark Morton with Benno Papari, that is me, is out now on Hachette Books and in all major bookstores. Mark is a good friend of mine. He is the guitarist in the metal band Lamb of God. And so we collaborated on his memoir. I'm biased, but that's a damn good book. Again, it is called Desolation, a Heavy Metal Memoir. And lastly, if you want to get in touch, go to the Songwriters on Process website. You can fill out a handy contact form and it'll get to me that way. You can also email me at ben@songwritersonprocess.com. I'm all ears. Send me your comments, your suggestions, your complaints, people you want me to interview. I get great suggestions all the time. I can't respond to all of the emails because I get a lot of them, but I do read all of them. And let me know your thoughts. If you have ideas for people you want me to interview, there's your chance. And with that, I am out. See you next time.